Sorry.
There you are.
That frightening American voice, and you feel it's going straight to the Pentagon. Okay. Well, Linda, who's done so much work in Yeovil and has got a campaign up and running in a remarkable short space of time, has invited me to chair the meeting. We've got another one. I'm a co-chair of the Somerset Bus Partnership, and we have a second chair with us this evening, who is Tony Rees, who is actually the founder of the Somerset Bus Partnership. And we've got a whole host of people, most of whom I don't know, but I noticed that David Redgwall, who's one of the best known campaigners for public transport in the Southwest, has joined us. I see that Bob Driscoll, a foreigner, he comes from Dorset, has joined us, but it's great to have you with us, Bob, because Dorset, Somerset cross-border issues are very real issues. And we have others on the call as well. I say that in a slightly dismissive tone. It's only because I don't know you. What would be good is if at any stage you want to say something, and I very much hope that you will, that you'll introduce yourselves and just say what it is that has prompted you to come here this evening. I think probably what it is the worsening state of bus services in Yeovil. Yeovil has possibly been, along with Wells, the hardest hit of all the towns in Somerset with bus cuts, possibly even worse than Wells. So I think there are one or two further bus cuts about to happen in Wells, which is going to get them competing for the sadly the worst town with bus cuts in Somerset. So the way we're going to play this, at Linda's suggestion, is I'm going to just give you a quick update on where things are in Somerset, and then we'll open it up for discussion from that point on. So if you can all see this, you should see a large Somerset Bus Partnership. That's the organisation that Tony and I are co-chairs of, and which Linda is a very active member of now, working together for better buses in Somerset. We were set up when Boris Johnson, a huge enthusiast for buses, decided to introduce Bus Back Better, this programme, which was set up with £3 billion with the aim of transforming our bus services in England, outside of London. And Tony, when he set up the organisation, recognised that Somerset possibly was in greater need of its bus services being transformed than any other local transport authority in the country. And we now have 150 representatives from across Somerset, representing villages and towns in the county. Sometimes it's just ordinary bus passengers, sometimes it's councillors, sometimes it's campaigners, enthusiasts, and increasingly it's bus user groups like the Yeovil Bus User Group. We work through parish and town councils. We attend their meetings. Some of us are on one or other of those councils. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. Our leadership team often gets talking on particularly the radio, and is quoted in the press. And Tony and I are the chair and vice chair of Somerset's specially set up body to represent bus users, grandly called the Bus Users and Stakeholders Group. And we've got a meeting in the next week or so of that organisation. It meets quarterly with all the officers of Somerset. And our aim is really to get the voice of bus users recognised and active in the county. And we're not trying to do that just through our central organisation. We're trying to do it through bus user groups, because actually I'm from the north of the county. I'm in Frome, and I know quite a lot about buses in Frome. But when people start to talk to me about buses in Yeovil, I really struggle. And that's the thing about buses, they're very local, and the intricacies of the service networks are known to those people who live in those towns and the neighbouring villages, and they know just how important they are. And they are the most powerful campaigners to put their case, because they know the implications of a bus cut. And Linda walked me around Yeovil to show me the implications of the recent bus cuts. And it was really quite shocking. And I know she's also walked Mike Hewitson, who's the deputy lead for transport now at Somerset County Council, making him aware of the implications of what in an office in Taunton might just seem to be a cut of a bus service, but what it actually means to the people whose lives are frankly can be blighted, particularly if they have limited mobility, as indeed was the case in some of the locations that Linda took me to. So when we started this group, the reason why Tony brought me into it was I was involved in a bus group which has been going for quite some time called FabBug, Frome and Villagers Bus User Group. We've been going for about 7 or 8 years when we saw a lot of our buses being cut at that time. What's happened since then is we've had some new bus groups, possibly most notably and possibly most successfully, Yeovil. Yeovil now has over 500 followers on its Facebook page. A Facebook page was only created 3 or 4 months ago. It's now got 500 followers. And that's because buses are a big issue in Yeovil, and the bus cuts in Yeovil were a big issue. We've got new groups all set up in the past 3 months in Bridgewater, in Wells, in Glastonbury, in Street, in Wellington, and in Chard. And in the next, I've got a meeting on Thursday, and we hope to set up a group in Taunton. We've struggled with the county town because they don't have a town council, and town councillors are often quite instrumental, and mayors, especially here in Yeovil, can give a lot of support to the setting up of a bus group. In Taunton, they don't have that town council. We struggled to set one up in Taunton, but we've now got a nucleus, and we're meeting on Thursday evening in one of these Zoom meetings. And in faraway Minehead, I drove from the northeast of Somerset to Minehead the other week, and it just makes you realise what a very big county Somerset is, and what a varied county it is as well. You've got county towns like Taunton, you've got towns like Yeovil and Frome, and then you've got miles and miles of countryside, wonderful countryside, but it's a very different existence from a commuter town like Frome or Wells, or an industrial town like Yeovil, compared with a farming community in somewhere like Wiveliscombe. Anyway, when Tony felt it was needed to set up a bus group, I don't think we'd fully appreciated just how dire the situation was in Somerset compared with the rest of the country. Because of a lack of willingness to invest and austerity and the way it was interpreted by the administration at Somerset County Council, bus journeys per head in Somerset over the 10 years up to the beginning of COVID had fallen by nearly half, by 43%, probably the biggest fall in the whole of the country. And of course, since COVID, they've fallen further, as they have elsewhere in the country. Somerset wasn't always the one with the second lowest bus journeys per head of population, but it would steadily falling down the list. So we're now second off bottom for bus journeys per head, because so many bus services, particularly evening and weekend bus services, were cut. And if you don't have an evening bus, then if you work in Taunton or Yeovil or in Bath, wanting to get back to Wells or Frome, and you can't get back in the evening from your job, you can't, there's no point going there in the morning by bus. You end up often getting a car and doing it by car. That was when cars were a bit more affordable than they are today. And then the final nail in the coffin was there is an independent survey done of all the local transport authorities in England, and Somerset has the worst rated bus service in England. So Bus Back Better we saw as a great opportunity to do something about bus services in Somerset. And so did Somerset County Council. I mean, having not spent very much for, oh yes, and just to add, I mean, the importance of buses can't be overstated in Somerset, because nearly half of all the carbon emissions in this country come from transport. It's one of the highest in the whole country. And when you looked at what was happening to expenditure, Somerset had been significantly underspending on buses compared with our neighbouring counties. That blue bar is Somerset, and it's 40% below the average for all the 5 councils shown in that area. And these are all somewhat similar rural councils: Cornwall, Wiltshire, Devon, Dorset, and Somerset. So 10 years of austerity and the way it had been interpreted in Somerset had seen our bus services starved of investment. And the consequence of that is that we now have the worst rated bus services in the country. So at the time of the election for the new Somerset County Council, and in due course that will become the unitary authority, and it's going to be in power for 5 years, we put out a manifesto calling for lots of good things for buses, and I think most people would go along with this, a progressive move towards electric buses, affordable buses, an integrated network. But possibly the most controversial and important thing is the clause I've ringed in green to bring Somerset's bus budget up to the average for similar local rural authorities across the southwest. Not immediately, that just wouldn't be viable, but during the course of this council, so by 2026, that would mean a 40+% increase. And the interesting thing is, we sent that to every single prospective candidate standing for Somerset County Council. And of those who were elected, and of course there was a change of control in Somerset, it's now a Lib Dem controlled council, 2/3, 64% of newly elected members across all the political parties backed and endorsed that manifesto, including the pledge to spend over 40% more on buses in Somerset. So that was a significant start. And then we had Bus Back Better. Promised so much, but because of COVID and the need to subsidize public transport, rail was subsidized very heavily, of necessity, far more than buses were. The problem was that to subsidize buses, they took the money out of the fund which was designed to transform our bus services. So to keep our buses running through COVID, 2/3 of the fund which was designed to transform our bus services was snaffled and taken away just to keep our bus services running. So that by the time they divvied what was left, they didn't have anything like what they wanted. Somerset asked for an eye-watering £163 million. This was from a council who was only spending around about £3 or £4 million itself on buses. They asked the government for £163 million. They got 7.5% of what they asked for, which was £11.9 million. Dorset didn't get anything. Wiltshire didn't get anything. West of England Combined Authority got an awful lot of money. Devon got a lot more than we did, but we did get £11.9 million, which was getting on for 3 times what we would normally spend on supporting our bus services. But when the government gave us the money, they put very clear guidelines as to how it should be spent. And most of that money, and we understand why, but most of that money is going to be spent on the county town to improve the transport infrastructure, particularly bus priority lanes and other aspects of transport in the county. What it can't be used for, and it can't be anywhere in the country, it can't be used to stop the bus cuts. So it couldn't be used to prevent the bus cuts in Yeovil. It can't be used for the bus cuts which are going to come to Wells or to Frome. The only way that that can be funded would be if Somerset County Council had the money, and they're working on a budget which the previous council established, and it's a very tight budget indeed. So there's only a limited amount that the county council can do. So at a time when we should all have been looking for a huge improvement to our buses, with Bus Back Better monies being shared out, what we actually saw was cuts right across the board. And as I've said many times, Yeovil probably suffered the most of all of those.
My grandson. He's doing wonders, and it makes me feel that when I'm not here,
I've got a voice in the background, an American accent, I think. If you could mute yourselves if you're not talking. Thank you.
Dennis Wake, can you mute him?
So the prospect now, we've just seen it again in the West of England Combined Authority. There's been a statement, I believe, issued today listing a host of bus cuts up there. The mayor has been talking about it. And we're fearful that we will see bus cuts in Wells and Frome, not from buses of Somerset, but from their Bristol-based first bus arm called First West of England. There may be more bus cuts to come. These are difficult times for bus operators. We recognise that. Escalating prices of fuel, very hard task, particularly in Bristol and Bath, to recruit drivers. Sometimes it's not other reasons, it's simply that they can't get the drivers to drive the buses. So big challenges, really big challenges. One of the things we saw in the previous Prime Minister, somebody who is very keen to do things about buses. His transport minister has talked of introducing flat fares. We finally got them to agree to extend the bus recovery fund. But in all probability, it's this lady who's going to determine what happens in terms of support for our buses, unless we get central government support for our bus industry. Buses are going to suffer. There needs to be increased funding for buses in one way or another. And one of the tasks we will have as bus campaigners is to write directly to the new transport minister, whoever it might be. Currently it's Grant Shapps. The rumour has it won't stay with Grant Shapps, that role, but whoever it is, we need to contact him. We need to contact our MP, lobby your MPs. We've seen in Wells, James Heapy, Conservative MP, who's never had a history of talking about buses, is now out there campaigning very actively to protect the bus services in Wales. If we make it a bigger enough issue locally, regardless of party, we will see our local MPs become very active supporting our bus services, because people in those towns need buses more than ever before. So that's the broad picture. Let's just talk about what's happening here in terms of campaigning in Somerset. We're working now very closely with Somerset County Council. They launched their Bus It campaign, an advertising campaign. Yes, it's not often you see local authorities promoting buses through advertising and through social media, but Somerset is doing so, and they're working with the Somerset Bus Partnership with us to develop and run that campaign. This is one of the ads which is running at the moment, talking about the cost of filling up the car with fuel. 100, I filled my car up today, £100 nearly I paid. And the fact that people who can travel freely on buses are some of the most reluctant to return to buses. And so here was an ad directly targeting seniors to encourage them back onto buses. And it's interesting that it can be done. We can get people back onto buses. Transport Focus, which is a large, well-funded, independent research company, has shown that there's been a resurgence of bus use over the last quarter. Still got a long way to go till we get back to where we were pre-COVID. A lot of people now working from home at least part of the week. There are still some reluctant to return to buses, but the trend is in the right direction, and it seems to be increasing, not least because of the price of fuel. It's being said that the researchers are finding that people are saying they're being forced to opt to go use public transport, buses and trains, simply because they can't afford the price of driving anymore. So that brings us up to where we are now, almost September the 1st, and September the 1st is Catch the Bus Month. And we in Somerset have got more events than any other local transport authority in the country. So we heard from Bus Users UK this morning. They complimented us on having more events. And of course, one of them is here in Yeovil, and we'll talk some more about that. But just talking about campaigning, because what we want to do is to establish a bus user group in Taunton. Sorry, in Taunton. We need to do one at Taunton, in Yeovil. And it can be down to individuals. Greta is somebody who, as an individual, personified the green campaigning globally. Not the sort of person who you would have seen to be a political leader on the world stage, but that's what she became. In Frome, we have Tracy Harding, who is being described by the local press as Frome's bus lady. We run bus stalls in Frome, here's one of them, and Tracy's got a huge knowledge of local bus services and is there on hand to advise people, tell them what buses they can catch, which buses go to wherever they might need to go to. And she's a live wire in the town, has become a personality in the town. I think we've probably got one in Yeovil as well. Campaigning has changed during COVID. It all used to be in crowded meeting rooms or in large public meetings, and that's now beginning to come back. In Wales, they're starting to have large public meetings prompted by threats to their bus services. They had 200 or 300 in a large meeting only last week, the Wales bus group. And I think this will, I suggest this might well happen in Yeovil, that you will start to get public meetings in Yeovil. And those are exciting places and interesting places to be, because you actually meet the people you're campaigning with. But then you've got this disembodied medium called Zoom that I've got 4 Zoom meetings this week about buses. It's changed everything. And for the Somerset Bus Partnership, we couldn't do it without Zoom, because we have meetings which reach out across Somerset to, I was saying what a big county it is, where we get people from campaign groups right across the county joining our county-wide meeting. And if we called a meeting in Taunton, we'd probably get 1/10 of what we get. We get 80 or 90 people on our Zoom meetings. We would probably not get more than a dozen in Taunton if we held it there. So Zoom meetings have changed things. It's not only Zoom though. We've become keyboard warriors, and we do that. We do it on Facebook. I mean, the Yeovil Bus User Group. I mean, yes, Linda can go out and talk to 2 or 3 people of a morning. She can post on Yeovil's Bus User Group, and she could probably, within 24 hours, reach 200 or 300 people, and probably within a week have reached 500 people. Facebook has the most enormous reach. And if you think about your posts, make them interesting, and you keep your site well managed, it's a tremendous vehicle for getting the message out about buses. It is a major medium for bus campaigning. Yes, we have internet sites, websites, and we use Twitter. But in truth, the main medium for most of our local campaigning is Facebook. Yes, we also have BBC Points West, who are tonight talking about bus cuts in Somerset, and BBC Radio Somerset regularly get us on there to talk about bus issues, and local papers. Local papers, even in this internet world, are still read by people of influence and importance, and it's important to get your message into the local papers, help the journalists, give them good stories, and they'll give you coverage. Another part of campaigning is to pick up on things which shouldn't be, and this is a bus shelter in Yeovil. It's one that Linda took me to, and it's in a truly shocking state. Not a good advertisement for persuading someone to bus it for the first time. Interestingly, our bus campaigning group in Chard decided to do something about all their bus shelters. They went out over a series of weekends with a couple of buckets and sponges, and it's surprisingly easy to clean up a bus shelter. Maybe it's not a job they should have to do, but if nobody else is doing it, then it's good for bus passenger numbers and growing bus passenger numbers to improve the state of the bus shelters. And the best way, and this is something that Somerset County Council believes in, it's something that Somerset Bus Partnership believes in, the best way of protecting bus services is for us to use our buses, our existing buses. Yes, bus companies are making cuts for financial reasons because they can't find enough drivers, whatever it is, they're being forced to make those cuts. The way of stopping them choosing your route for a cut is to get more people to use that bus route, so it's one of the more profitable routes, and then that way it will be kept. So that's why Catch the Bus Month is so important, and it's a basis for what Linda wants to do, which is to form a bus user group in Yeovil. And as probably most of you know, there is a chat function on Zoom. It's available at the bottom of the screen on most computers. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you feel you can help Linda with a bus stall in Yeovil on Saturday, the September the 10th, just to put your name and your email, possibly your phone number as well, onto the chat so that Linda can ring you up. And what we're not asking you to do a whole day, we're saying if you could do an hour, possibly two, meet some new people, and do something to try and encourage bus use in Yeovil, talk about the issues facing Yeovil in terms of bus cuts. Mike Hewitson, deputy lead on buses for the whole of Somerset, is going to be there for part of the day. Talk to him about your bus issues. It is a great opportunity. Linda, do you want to say something about the plans for the Catch the Bus stall in Yeovil, because you've got some really interesting ideas being developed here?
Yeah, well, obviously it starts off with the Catch the Bus month. So I've already got some posters in, hopefully all bus companies, to promote the Catch the Buses. I've also got some posters that I need to put around on bus shelters, saying bus it because. Then on the day I have a children's drawing competition, which I've run through August. Tomorrow's the last day. I've got to collect the pictures, and the town council are actually going to choose the winner. And on the day, on the 10th, which is Yeovil's Catch the Bus Day, I've got to ring the child who has won and invite them to the Catch the Bus Day. And it's going to be given a prize by the mayor. So I've got Evie Potts, the town mayor, there. Also, the pictures are going to be displayed into bus shelters. I've hopefully on the day, I'm going to have a table with timetables. I'm going to have a questionnaire on there, sort of a survey type thing, and also a petition, the paper petition that's been going around. I'm hoping to meet people, hear what's going on, what they're struggling with, as in problems with the buses, but also I've got quite a range of different people also from different organisations who will be around on that day. Things like, as Peter's already mentioned, Mike Hewitson, he's the county councillor, Somerset County Councillor, assistant travel section. I've also got the independent, Yeovil Independent, Tara Casey, who's going to be there, who wants to talk and listen to what's going on. I've also got the Green Party coming and supporting, saying why buses are important. I've also got some Labour people who are very much wanting to endorse through their manifesto. They've got quite an important thing about buses, so they're all for it. I've also got Abri, who's here tonight, who's backing me and helping as much as possible. It's great. We're hoping to use one of the halls in Yeovil to actually get a proper meeting together and talk and get a core group together so that we can start putting out posters and start looking at all the issues that are there are so many issues. I have emails and things at the moment that I'm juggling and pushing and trying to sort out. So there is a lot to be done. I'd quite like to clean the bus stops, bus shelters. But yeah, the day itself will be from 9 till 4. Obviously, I don't expect people to be there all day, just parts of the days. The more people we've got, the more we can do little sections together. I'm planning to be there most of the day anyway. And it's just meeting and greeting and listening to what people want and need and ways to kind of then take that on and see where we can develop and see how we can go forward from here with obviously the lack of service we've got. I'm still very much in favour of pushing for the withdrawn 53 that was taken out. I'm still pushing to try and get some rerouting going on there. There are also other areas that I'm involved with, for example, the Bridport one. So Bob Driscoll, who's over in Dorset. I'm very much have been talking to Mike Rigby, who's the lead community county councillor, about engaging with Ray Bryan, who's the Dorset county councillor, and try and get the two together to work on saving yet another bus cut. So there's lots going on. I could really do with just a bit of help and support. I've obviously got some people here, and I've also on the day have also got community cars and buses also there to talk and try and help people that are in need, basically. Just a little thing.
So we've had one or two people volunteer. We're not asking for a huge commitment, but it would be really helpful if we could have a few more volunteers on that day, just to share the workload, because it can make a difference. We've seen it in Frome where I've done bus stalls. It has persuaded people to start to use buses, and the more people, each person you get who chooses to start to travel by bus, it does, in a remarkable way, it does change the business model for the bus operators. So these bus stalls may not sound the most exciting thing in the world, but they are very constructive events. So if you could find time to come along on the 10th, that would be really helpful.
I'm hoping to be a bit fun. I am hoping there for a bit sort of like, I don't know, community spirit and having a bit of a laugh as well, to try and, because otherwise it can be quite staid and a bit dry, and that's not my character. And I think having the kids there with their pictures as well, I'm hoping it'll be a bit more colourful and vibrant, really.
Where is this being held?
It's being held in the borough on the 10th of September. So the borough in the at the top of town. There's a sort of one of the main sort of pull-ins, bus pull-ins.
Yeah.
So please.
Okay, somebody else like to say something at this stage? You probably heard far too much from me, so
Yeah, I'd like to point out about the Taunton bus.
Right.
I know, Linda, you've had loads of people complaining about it, but I'm a volunteer for a charity called FND Friends, and we cover all of the Southwest, and it's for a disability called functional neurological disorder. And now that I have to change at Somerton, and most of the time you miss the connection, if I had a meetup in Minehead, because I cover all of Somerset for our meetups, it could take me 3 hours to get to Minehead to do a meetup, and then 3 hours to get back. So that's 6 hours of my day now. So I have actually decided that I'm cancelling all meetups in Minehead. And I just think that is so unfair on the people in Minehead that I've had to make the decision that I can't go over there to give them the meetups, because sometimes that could be the only communication they have with people outside. Because with a disability, it affects people in different ways. Sometimes people can walk, sometimes people are in chairs and everything. So it's the support group, and sometimes it's the support they need. And, you know, it's meant to be a connection that people are meant to be able to make at Somerton.
I can actually, sorry, do you mind me just butting in there for a second? I've been pushing really, really hard on this whole connection, and I have had some feedback. I'm not sure quite what it is all about at the moment, or what the actual plan is. I know that First have reassessed this whole situation. They have admitted that it is not working, and it is under review. I've also, I know that they're not going to reinstate the 54 directly, so it still will be, I believe, a changeover at Somerton. However, they are looking at the timetable right at this moment. I'm waiting. It should be another couple of weeks, I believe, for them to sort it out. But they are looking at the times so that these will be connecting. They've also said that they're having a review with somebody watching and making sure. The last 2 buses will be having a, the drivers will be having some kind of radio contact, so that on the last bus, the last changeover bus from Taunton to the Wells bus, the last of the day before the 55 direct route, will be radio controlled. They will be connecting. The other times during the day, they are having somebody in Somerton to keep an eye on it, and they're closely going to be watching what's going to happen with it. I have not seen the timetable. However, this has come from Simon Goff himself, who's the MD of Somerset First. So I've asked to see these timetables, and I'm wanting to see what's actually happening. Obviously, I'm still trying to find the timetables, but it has to go through Somerset County Council. So there is still some negotiation there, but they literally admitted that it had failed. So that's at least one good thing, and they are on it. So that's all I can give. That came through about a couple of days ago, and I was hoping I'd be able to get the timetable, or at least review it, to be able to sort of say this is what has happened. But I haven't had that yet. But it's a slight relief. It's not what I wanted personally. I wanted the 54 back, but they said with the fact and the climate of the fact that passengers are still not up to what they were before, they are struggling to get to fund two separate buses, but if they get it right, it could at least be something of a reprieve. So
Yeah. No,
there you go.
I agree with that. They just need to make it meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would, I think then we may actually, it can then start to promote that actually is worth getting, because I think a lot of people have now, because it's not met, you've been stranded for about an hour in Somerton. It's put people off. I mean, I personally don't want to be stuck in Somerton. So, you know, and it's getting darker and it's getting colder. People don't need to be stranded. So,
Well, I had a hospital appointment once and I deliberately got the first bus
yeah.
to make sure
Just
I
so you
made my
have direct.
hospital appointment. And that was
Yeah.
actually on my birthday.
I remember you saying actually.
Yeah. So I did make it.
Can
The
I?
other thing is,
Tony,
I've just got one quick question for Caroline, because people always remember the number of times they got stuck. And I'm trying to find out from people, how many times is it? Was it just once and it was annoying?
I've never actually been stuck because I've always gone for the first bus.
And it's always connected?
No, the first
The
bus.
first
Oh,
bus
the one that goes through.
Yeah,
A
direct.
Yeah,
lot of
sorry.
people will remember the times it didn't work. I've watched some of them. I've talked to some of the drivers. You know, I really want to feel for how many times it didn't work. I know once is too many, it will put people off.
Yeah.
But is it once now and again, or are most often connecting?
Most of them aren't connected. My boyfriend has heard of absolutely hundreds of people complaining, and I've heard of hundreds of people complaining that the bus is not connecting.
I often get them on my user site that, you know, it's very regular. I mean, I can't say it. I suppose it would be quite nice to have seen what time was it wasn't working and when was it working. The thing is, I have been constantly, because obviously I catch the buses an awful lot. I rely on them quite a lot. There is a stop just outside Ryle's Doctors, which is on the Ilchester Road, which was the one that served by the 54 before it was stopped. Now, one lady used to use the 54 to get home because she lives around that area. So now she has to wait for the Martok, which is every 2 hours. However, she says that she goes down and she gets the 77 to go to Taunton, and she says it hardly ever leaves on time. And I know for a fact that when I went, it was I caught to Taunton. I actually went to Glastonbury, but the first bus, it conked out, and that's another problem that we seem to be having a lot of, buses breaking down. But the second one was at least 15 minutes late, and I was still in Yeovil. So there is, because of the congestion in Yeovil, which is another issue, it's holding everything up. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My other problem is not with First, but it is with the bus cuts. Because South West coaches have cancelled their service to Yeovil Junction, I now can't get a bus from Yeovil bus station to Yeovil Junction. So I now have to use a taxi or the community transport bus, which I know David's done some work for me, and so's Linda and everything. And I've now found out with the community transport, it will cost me £10 return. Because I've got I've got a pass.
But Somerset County are running that service.
Yes, but the bus they use, I cannot use because I've got a mobility scooter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's only a 14-seater passenger, 14 passenger.
Yeah. And I can't use it with my mobility scooter.
Yeah.
So again, that restricts me.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford, if I use Radio Cabs, which is the cheapest taxi firm, cost me £11.20 to get to the train station. If I use community transport, that cost me £10 return. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Where when I was using South West coaches, it was either free or £3 if it was before 9:30. I'd have to pay. No,
Martin,
so it's a restriction for me because again, I'm having to pay out more, or the charity's having to pay out more because I'm having to pay out more to get to see the people who need our help, like getting to Frome. I have to get the train to Frome.
okay. It's a problem. Martin Davis, you've been very patient. Then I'll come to David Redwell. Martin.
Hello, hello there, everyone. I need to be honest, I don't know much about Yeovil because I'm not from the area. It was actually Dave Redwell encouraged me to come to this meeting tonight, so thanks, Dave. I actually did pass through Yeovil bus station a couple of weekends ago. It was like on an organised trip. And it's just, you know, I really couldn't help notice how it was on a Sunday and there's no buses there at all. I mean, like, what would it sort of take out of interest for them to have, like, I understand there hasn't been Sunday buses in Yeovil for quite a while. I mean, what would it take sort of to get a Sunday service back again? Because I'm guessing that there would probably be demand for something in that area, particularly at the moment, what with the challenges everyone's facing, you know, with costs of fuel and everything.
I think it would take Somerset County Council to underwrite with seed call money, and they've got so many priorities which they have to address. Unfortunately, the Sunday services are one of those things that got cut. They weren't funded, and as I'm sure David Redwell will now tell us, because I'll go to David, re-establishing bus routes once they've been cancelled is a very difficult task indeed, because bus companies feel that they've had their fingers burnt with that bus route, and to re-establish it without a lot of help, financial help, is going to be a big challenge. David, over to you.
Well, just on Sunday services, I mean, you'd be surprised or not surprised to know that, in fact, there's very few commercial Sunday services. Bath, which is also in Somerset, of course, is funded, most of its Sunday services, by the West of England Mayor, Dan Norris. He picks up the tab for most of the Sunday operation. Devon pays most of their subsidy out on a Sunday, and even Bristol Sunday services are quite heavily subsidised. So Sundays is usually a local authority operation, as is evening services. But at the moment, of course, everything's being funded by the Secretary of State for Transport through COVID-19 bus operator grant, £130 million. I think one of the issues I wanted to pick up was ongoing funding. I mean, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to bring back a real commercial bus network. I think we've learnt today, with 18 routes being cancelled in the Bristol area and in Somerset from the 9th of October, how difficult it's going to become. And we've even seen the equivalent of, I suppose, what you would call Somerset's transport company, internal one, Transport Somerset, the equivalent of that, which was Bristol's version of that, which serves the north of Somerset, gone bust, which is HCT Group, and that's gone spectacularly bust, and the receivers are going to shut it, we believe, Friday. So we obviously, public money is very important, but the point I wanted to make is Somerset County Council's equalities duties. Dorset County Council let a lot of contracts in Yeovil. As I say, Linda's right when she says over half the buses in Yeovil are not provided by Somerset County Council. They're provided by Dorset County Council under tenders and contracts which Ray Bryant looks after and his team. Knock is the councillor that looks after a lot of the operation there. The issue is that Somerset should be buying and investing in compliant vehicles, and we don't seem to have them. Low floor, second-hand, up-tier solos, like the type that First use, or smaller minibuses, like the type that First use, are very cheap to purchase at the moment on the second-hand market. We know there's probably a lot of buses around on the second-hand market at the moment because of the collapse of Bournemouth Transport. So I don't think there's an excuse for transporting Somerset to invest in these tiny minibuses that they use on school runs and not really invest properly in their transport fleet. And I think that's an issue that we've really got to push Mike Hewison and Mike Rigby into why the fleet is not being invested in properly. If they're to take on any large work other than the bit they've got in Yeovil, Taunton and Frome, if they were to take on the 126 between Wales and Weston-super-Mare via Cheddar, then they would need bigger buses. If they were to do the D2 on a Sunday or in the evenings, that's Bath to Frome, they would need bigger buses. So I am concerned that the Equalities Act is breached in Somerset. And I do think this is an issue, Peter, we shouldn't let them get away with, because apart from a minibus that runs around Bridport, which Bob knows about, I'm aware that as a wheelchair user myself, every other local authority, transport authority in Southwest England is all running wheelchair accessible buses. So Yeovil is not a tiny place. And I think we should have challenged that contract. They awarded it to themselves with this funny specification for 16 seats for the Yeovil, Penmill, Yeovil Junction rail link and a town service. And I think it's totally inadequate. I mean, obviously at the moment, rightly or wrongly, First Group's cut the train service from Exeter to London via Yeovil. They run South Western Railway. But I am not happy about that. And I think that with the number of rail passengers, slowly like the buses, because they're rail down as well, the rail passengers are down at 70%, beginning to come back. I don't know how we're going to get them onto the bus network to bring them into the town. So I am somewhat concerned, and it's an issue that we should be pushing the county, or otherwise I think if they can't run it themselves, they should re-commercialise it and go out to tender with South West Coaches or First Group to run it. On the 54, yeah, I mean, they can do more now because every bus has a ticketer on it, and they can send messages by typing on the machine a message to the control in Taunton to ticket out a message to the 54 and say they're delayed by 5 minutes. None of that's happening. There is technology. I don't think it's going to be radio control. I think they just need to use ticketer a lot more than what they're doing now. Ticketer is used in Taunton to tell drivers of delays. They ticketer out quite often, and when they're overloaded on the Minehead to Taunton route 28, they send ticketing information out there. I think the other thing with the 77 is trying to do too many things. It's trying to connect with the 54 at Somerton, but it's also trying to connect and maintain the route into Wales. And then when the 376 gets cancelled, which is the Bristol Street service, as it has been today, they put a hold on the 77 to connect with the 376 from Bristol to get people to Street and Glastonbury. So the bus waits for the 376 to come in, and they transfer the customers, which is all right for joined up first, and I welcome that. But then it misses its connection with the bus to and from Taunton. So it's just trying to do too many connections. I'm not sure even with the changes to timetable it'll work, because it's trying to connect in so many different places. But I think ideally in the future it might be better to go back to a 90-minute service, between Taunton and Yeovil, and actually have a service that goes through. And I think that's really Somerset County Council's idea, was this connecting thing. It was John Perrott. So I'm not sure it was all down to, from what I've seen, all the history and all the letters of this. This was a Somerset idea, not a first idea. But we are where we are at the moment. First South West, of course, for those who don't know it, is about to merge with First Wessex and First Hearts Dorset in Berkshire. So it will be a company eventually that will stretch from Slough in the Berkshire in the far east, I suppose, down to Penzance in the south. So it's going to be a much bigger company. But I think we've got to keep pushing Somerset to provide a decent bus service in Yeovil. I think the other thing is, I am disappointed that they don't have a budget in Somerset at the moment. I've been pushing Mike Rigby very hard to try and get a budget up on that. I think we've got to take the bus service budget up and the rail service support budget for infrastructure up to about 2 million, because if you don't take it up to 2 million with bus service inflation of 47%, we are not going to get the bus service we want. And I'm quite worried at the moment. So an emergency budget at Somerset Somerset, which brings the budget up at the county council, would be, and I think, just like I've been saying to the Metro Mayor and the team in Bristol, in the north of the county, they should have an emergency budget to look at what the issues are with the 18 bus routes that are going to be withdrawn in the north of Somerset and in the Bristol area. And that, of course, does involve, Peter says, that involves Wells and Frome. That's not just what we're talking about Bristol, we're talking about the north of the county of Somerset as much as Mendip. We need to find a way of getting the buses back in Yeovil. And I think a bus summit and focusing minds on getting a decent town service in Yeovil. But of course, anything we do in Yeovil, as I've known from my experience, and my family's from Dorset, everything to do in Yeovil relies on Dorset County Council as well. So without Ray Bryant fully on board and signed up as much as Mike Rigby, we don't go anywhere. So I think the issue about the Dorset bus group, Peter, we need to get more Dorset members into Yeovil bus group. So Mike Keating's not on the call tonight from Sherborne, but it's a big bus campaigner and group out there. We got Bob on the call. So we do need to pull in the Dorset hinterland and get the relationship, Linda, with Dorset as we've got with Somerset, and make sure that Yeovil is seen as important to both councils. I just say that the 54, the X12, the X11, the 6 and the 6 are nothing to do with Somerset County Council. They're all Dorset services. So Yeovil is reliant on Dorset County Council for a lot of bus services. So, and I think the other thing is we need to make sure that appalling bus station I was in 3 weeks ago is cleaned properly. It is the responsibility of South Somerset District Council. It's owned by the developer, but like Bath, but it's South Somerset. Need to get it cleaned, and all those bus shelters are in a contract, a lot of them, with Clear Channel and South Somerset Council. I'm not seeing the enforcement. I don't understand how they're taking money from advertising revenue from Clear Channel, but Linda, they're not cleaning. And I've blown up Wecker, really big sign, West of England Mirror Combined Authority, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, for the state of the bus shelters in Bristol, Bath and Western and North and South Gloucestershire, because they were not. It was Clear Channel again. Clear Channel were not doing the maintenance in the north of the county. We need to find out why they're not doing it in the south of the county either. So yeah, that's my point. And I suppose there's one other final point, Peter. We should be pushing. I wasn't happy this evening to hear First Group banging on about some smart card that can be used on their trains in your area, Peter, in particular. But not used on their buses. And I think we've got to make sure that there's no excuse why we shouldn't be able to produce a bus ticket from Yeovil, rail ticket, from Yeovil, Penmill to Taunton Station that can be valid on both bus and train run by First. So if things do go wrong, people have got the option of going back on the train, and we need to work with Somerset to get integrated travel cards. After all, South Western Railway, Great Western Railway are also run by First. Only thing I'll say on the Catch the Bus campaigning stalls, please make sure you include Barry's coaches in the literature, and you do include also the local rail stuff, because as we can see, none of the local rail stuff is safe either. Grant Shapps can put the axe to the local railway network, the axe will fall. I'm afraid it's not just buses we're fighting for survival, it's also the local trains, as we can see from South Western Railway. I don't know whether Bob Driscoll's got any more to add to that, but finally, I should say,
David. Thank you, David.
The final bit Peter was going to say was to remind everybody, including Peter himself, we have all these Bus Back Better meetings happening in Dorset, dates in which I think Linda's got, but please, anybody who feels they want to join the Dorset Bus Back Better meetings, please join, please make sure you're campaigning, please make sure you're telling Dorset about the importance of Yeovil and cross-border services. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David.
On the cross-border services, when Damery were doing it, it was altered to run via Lysander Road, and we tried to get them to go right down to West Bay, which will be collecting masses of people from Yeovil, because it's the most popular coastal resort for people from Yeovil. That is what needs to do with that cross-border service. It needs to go out of town, out of Yeovil, via Lysander Road and on to the West Coker Road and down to Bridport and finish its journey at West Bay.
Yeah.
I actually, sorry, carry on. Yeah, carry on.
And the link to the stations, one of the things I did send to the County Council for the original thing, Bus Back Better, in September, was a link from the stations through the town out to Lysander Road, calling in at the bus stop for Leonardo's helicopters, and then on to Abbey Manor. And it should be really sponsored by Leonardo's helicopters. That was the route which was going to be, a frequent main service route linking both stations with the town centre, along Lysander Road, all the places along there, out to Abbey Manor Park.
Thank you. I mean, what is coming across is the diversity of issues, and frankly, we need help here in Yeovil with people able to address those issues and to fight for those issues. And yes, people like David Redwell battle all over the Southwest, not just on disability issues, but on disability issues, because he's well informed, he knows what is required, and he's got clout. But what we need to do is to have similar people in Yeovil, as we have in Frome, as we are developing in Wells and elsewhere. So it's not just about turning up and manning a stall for a couple of hours. There's a whole range of ways you could get involved to make a difference in Yeovil. So if you feel you can help, or if you feel that you want to just stay involved and updated, do put your email address so that we can keep you informed and updated when there is an issue which is being raised, which is being campaigned for, or where we need some form of support for it to be taken forward. It can't always be down to the likes of a single person like Linda to do it, albeit she's battled hard and has done so far a remarkable job. Jevon, again, not from Yeovil, but from a bus campaigning background. Jevon.
Yes, I just wanted to say that David has taken, to start with, some good news, 33% of my worth. Yes, the ticketer David was going on about, Yeovil with Taunton and Bridgewater would have to use liaising systems where an envelope comes up on the driver's screenage and brings up however many messages like you would get on an icon of an iPhone or any iDevice of Apple, and it would come up with the number of how many messages that driver has to receive, like you have to go on a diversion, meet up with a bus, or whatever instruction would then come up on the screen of that ticketer. Anyway, secondly, Opter solos have been gone a very long time from the first group area we are in, and that's only one remaining left now, and that's now been done to a speciality livery. And thirdly and last, what was that other one? Well, the fleet is now, like I say, modernising into only Enviro 200s, not Opter solos, and generally it's pretty good. And modernising, that was the other thing. Yeovil servings. We didn't have a service in Yeovil since 2006. That was the year Yeovil last had a service. Yeah, because Bristol Bus Station opened 2005. where there was a through service right the way down to Yeovil, alternately with the 929s and the 976 the next hour, all the way to Wells, and then it split at Street onto 929 1 hour, 976 the next. The 976 then turned at Yeovil into 958 across the
To Wincanton.
and back again. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
There were only 2 services, 2006.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Devon. Bob, it's good to see you've been invited, I think, by David, or prompted by David to say something. Delighted to hear your comments, and really good to have you on the meeting tonight.
Well, thank you, and thank you for a very interesting meeting. And I know that Lynn, I think, has been in contact with Guz, who's our new chair, and sorry she couldn't come tonight. I was really going to just make a couple of comments. Earlier, you talked, I think it was Caroline, about connecting buses, and I have to say that connecting buses have never worked on even the buses of Somerset and First Wessex combined service between Yeovil and Bridport. For 2 years, we had to change in Beminster, and they were guaranteed, inverted commas, connections, and they didn't work. And in fact, just to tell you that we, in the end, 2 of us went to the First Wessex office in Weymouth and forced the operations manager to raid his tea caddy to give us enough money to pay some taxes that some hapless passengers had to pay for. And these are bus companies that are all under the same brand, which David Redgall's mentioned as well. So it's just that, yes, at the end of the day, actually they're causing themselves their own problems, because once they get a reputation for unreliability, they lose credibility and they lose custom, and we've certainly had that on our route. Simon Goff was mentioned by someone as a Buses of Somerset man, MD, and of course he will be taking over the whole of the new combined empire that, again, David Redgall referred to. So I'm assuming that's good news, and I just have some anxiety about an organisation that is covering from Slough in Berkshire to Penzance in Cornwall under one management. We have an excellent relationship with First Wessex at local management level, and indeed their network planner, I'll even quote his name, David Redgall, not David Redgall.
If only.
If only, yeah, absolutely. David Attrell, who with whom we discuss the X51, X53, our Jurassic Coast services, and I just know that poor fellow is run ragged by what he has to do, and therefore that's how you make mistakes. And anyway, there we go. But that's what's happening. The question of the DDA compliant vehicles, you may know that Beminster Town Council operates on a Saturday only, what they call their CB3, which
community.
Yes, that's absolutely right. That is DDA compliant, and it is a small optare, which Dorset Council, or Dorset County Council, because this was in 2018, basically gifted to them. And all I will say, but I'm not trying to suggest anything at this stage, it is only used 1 day a week. And it is indeed a 16-seater. And that takes me on to why are these vehicles restricted to 14 or 16 seats? Well, that's quite simple, because a 16-seater, even if it's a huge, great vehicle like our Optare is, the CB3, can be driven by somebody who just has a minibus license. You go on to 17 seats and above, and you've got to have a PSV, which is quite important. But so that was just a thought on that. And the only other thing which Norman Brown mentioned, the West Bay extension from Yeovil, I'm sure in the summer it would produce, but that's like everything else, that very much a seasonal demand. At the moment,
no, it would work all year round.
It did.
Yeah.
A number of people go down there all year.
I know
The
some people
year-round
that go down there.
service.
Yeah, I did actually suggest this to both Ray Bryan and Mike Rigby about the fact that the Bridport is not the most passenger friendly of times from Yeovil outwards, and that actually it would make a lot more sense and a lot more usable if it was a better timing.
Yes.
Definitely, it was appalling. You just can't get out, and if you get out, you have an hour before you're coming back again. So that was, in my opinion, part of the reason why it's not working for a start. But I did actually also say that going to West Bay would be an ideal thing, because Yeovil people only have a train with 3 carriages to Weymouth. So if you don't drive, you have that to the coast and that's it. So it would be wonderful to have a Yeovil to West Bay bus service.
Yes.
So that was my my rant to Mike Rigby.
Agreed.
I will. Right. Okay. Well, all I will conclude by saying the fact that buses of Somerset have deregistered that route. But I'm not sure if it's a chicken or egg situation, because of course at the same time we hear from Dorset Council that they will not renew the contract. So I don't know which came first. It's quite obvious if Dorset Council was not going to renew the contract, the buses of Somerset would have no option but to deregister, because obviously they're running into the loss. But it might, Lynn, I can only sort of tell you, and I'm not going to get political about this, because I think we really have an opportunity now to get this service sorted out. If people were to sit down and talk about it properly. But we have been trying for 2 years, and Tony Rees, I hope, will back me up. The buses of Somerset, ever since they actually took the initiative of saying it's crazy to have this changeover of one bus in Bedminster and then having to change onto a First Wessex bus to do the last bit from Bedminster to Bridport, we're going to run our buses right through. And so every afternoon, a bus leaves Yeovil at 16:35. Now, during college days, goes via Yeovil College to pick up if required, and comes down to Bridport and arrives at 1800 or thereabouts. It then runs back empty, out of service, all the way to Yeovil. And we have been asking that runs back in service. At the moment, the last bus from Bridport back to Yeovil, indeed anywhere north of Bedminster, leaves Bridport town centre at 12:56.
Yeah, it's absolutely appalling. Then the reason I realised was because I've been doing all the timetables to try and sort out what bus routes we do have in Yeovil, and I was speaking to my mum. She goes, "Oh, we could take my dad, because my dad's got eyesight problems. We could take him on the bus to West Bay." And I looked at it and I said, no, you won't be. There is no way, absolutely no way. And then from that moment on, I was like, I can't believe this is even a service. I honestly can't. How anybody could come up with that timetable is beyond me. It just makes no sense. But for you to say that it's coming back absolutely not used, so it's causing, sorry, I'm going to rant now, but it's pollution and they're not even getting anything for it, then that's just crazy. And did you say that was the Dorset Council that are running, or the first bus Wessex back, or what?
Well, the vehicle is operated by Buses of Somerset.
Right, okay.
But the
It's
contract...
First Southwest, Bob, actually. It's First Southwest. And of course, as you just pointed out, Simon Goff is the MD of both.
Yeah.
So it needs to be sorted out within First Group. And they do actually claim cost of running that empty. That vehicle gets paid by Dorset Council to run back empty under the contract condition. So it's absolutely ridiculous, and it needs Somerset County Council and Dorset County Council to sit round a table and try and resolve this situation at a political level. But the license for the operation is all with First, and there's just two licenses. One is Hants Dorset and Berkshire, and the other is Southwest. There's actually no company called Buses of Somerset. There's no company called First Wessex, but their brands at First use, but it's all First. And you might want to drop Janet Bell a line in, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
They love me, by the way.
John Hassel has been waiting very patiently. John is one of our co-chairs for Southwest and Taunton area. John.
Yes, I just wanted to pick up on something David Redwell said about Barry's coaches. I actually work for them, so as a vested interest there, as a courier going up to London. But you can use Barry's coaches between Tiverton and Bridgewater, between Taunton and Amesbury via Street, Glastonbury, that route, or via Yeovil as far as Wincanton. So anywhere en route, there are 2 coaches a day on the Wincanton route. There are 2 coaches a day on the Bridgewater route and 1 on the Street Glastonbury route. They're not maybe convenient times for going to work or anything else, but they do provide a service and you just pay a bus fare.
Can you buy that on the bus? You can turn up and get on the bus like that, or do you have to book?
Yeah. The only point is that's if they've got room on the bus. If we were 77-seater and it's full, and sorry, we can't do it. But all other occasions, and normally you could. A lot of people go from Yeovil to Ilchester, Ilminster to Ilchester as well.
Yeah.
So it can be used in that way. People going to college, that sort of thing.
Thanks, John. Well, I mean, we're now an hour and a half nearly into the meeting. We still got some 17 people with us. Till a few minutes ago, we were still over 20, which is a really good start for a bus user group. It shows there are a lot of people in Yeovil interested in the issue of buses. If you are interested, then the thing to do is to connect with the bus user group at their event for Catch the Bus Week or Catch the Bus Month. If you've not left your email address on the chat, please do so we can keep you updated. We'll keep the line open for another 2 or 3 minutes, but I think unless somebody really wants to say something, we'll draw this meeting to a close.
Can I
David?
Congratulate Tony Rees and yourself and everybody. We thought we had a hopeless case of Taunton bus station. The Department for Transport has just accepted our transport hub bid. which means what Taunton bus station will get reopened along with a new transport interchange when they finish the work at Taunton railway station. And I just think that shows the effort of this group. We didn't give up. We thought it was appalling, the facilities in Taunton, for the biggest county town in the southwest without a proper bus and transport interchange. And I think we're on the, providing we get the designs right, I think we've got to look at the architect's drawings and the historic building, but I think we're on the right track to having that reopened. And I would hope that all the other bus stations, including Wincanton and Yeovil, we can bring up to that standard, as well as Wales and Frome, Cork Street and Bridgewater, and something at Minehead, hopefully at least some facility at Minehead. We can bring up to the standard. And you know, you've got to look at Weston-super-Mare in the north of the county again to see that 7.5 million did produce something decent in Weston. So I think we've got to make sure those, because once you get the buses right, and of course Castle Kerry railway station is absolutely crucial as a bus. Oh, that's the worst in the southwest. I think absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm convinced now it's the worst, and it hasn't got lifts, and you're supposed to interchange buses there, and I think we've got to really fight that one with First Group and Network Rail and the council. But I really think, play credit to everybody today. We still got more to do on a coach facility at Riverside at Taunton, but I think we should take credit that this group and Tony worked very hard. We didn't give up. Other people, including First, were trying to defeat us, and we won. So I just think when we get the designs right, we've got something to say thank you about for everybody on the group, including Bob Driscoll, who fought for us down in Dorset for that interchange with the 30 bus that comes up to Taunton from Paxtonstowe.
And we couldn't have done it without you, David. You're a very powerful campaigner. So on that cheerful note, which says that campaigning can deliver, let's bring this meeting to a close. Please do leave us your email address if you haven't already. And thank you very, very much for giving up your evening tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you as well for just coming along and just taking an interest. It means something, which is great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I will close it at this stage. Thank you.
Well done. Well done, both of you. Okay.
Thank you. Well done, Linda. Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
See you soon.
Well, I appreciated it.
Thank you.